Welcome to the Sharp Betting Pod presented by OddsJam with your hosts Randall and Steve. You can follow us on Twitter at SharpBettingOJ. We are back for episode 2 this week to prepare you guys for the NFL this Sunday. Steve, what's going on? You ready for some football?
Oh, touchdown Metcalf. Let's go. What's going on, man? Yeah, I'm ready to go. I thought the first pod went well, and I'm ready to rock and roll in this one. Touch on some games for this weekend. I'm amped. How about you?
Oh, no doubt about it. So, as we said on our first podcast, we're going to give our opinions on some games this week in the NFL and, kind of what we like. So we'll start with Houston and New England. Talked about this game a little bit on the last one. Houston comes into this game off the shutout loss against Buffalo. And, the trend, for teams that are shut out since 2018, 11-3 against the spread now. This year, it's actually 2-0. The Dolphins a couple of weeks ago were shut out at home against the Bills as well. And then the Jets were shut out against the Broncos. So 1-1 outright and 2-0 against the spread. So I really like Houston in this spot, catching 8.5 or 9. I think that it's a pretty low scoring game. New England obviously comes off the game against Tampa Bay, where they prepared for that game probably all summer, definitely for several weeks leading up to the return of Tom Brady. And, they lost that game on a missed field goal, bounced off the upright, and, the rain was coming down. I'm not really sure, why they didn't go for it and try to get a little bit closer to make that kick a little bit easier. But I just think this is a really flat spot for New England, and you tie that in with Houston coming off of a shutout loss. I think it's just a very good spot, and I'm not sure New England has the firepower offensively to cover 9 points in a game like this. As bad as Davis Mills is, I think the Texans can keep this one close, and I'd say New England's probably one of the top 3 picks in Survivor, and as playing Survivor throughout the years, those top picks never seem to work out as the season kind of goes along. It's easy early on, but as the season continues, those 25 and 30%, picks don't really pan out. So, what are your thoughts on this game? Do you have anything from a power rating standpoint that stood out, or just anything from a handicapping angle?
Yeah, so first of all, I agree with pretty much everything that you said. From a power rating standpoint, I have this game as Patriots -7. So we are getting 2 points of value across the key number of 7. So I do like that. I think the books probably open this at 9 for teaser protection because, like you said, I mean, this seems like one of the easiest teasers of the week. It'll, I would say, almost guaranteed be the top survivor play in Circa because you wouldn't have used Pats before. And, I mean, Davis Mills, I mean, he's just not a capable NFL QB, bottom line. But I do agree. I mean, you and I were notoriously bad total bettors for whatever reason. I mean, I love the under in this game. It's the lowest total of the season. But, I mean, I don't bet totals just because that's just not how my brain works. I'm just not a good totals bettor. In fact, I might be one of the worst. But no, my point is.
Well, we like this. We like this Rams over. It's off to a solid start, 7-0. So.
Yeah, exactly. No, but my point is, I mean, very low total. That automatically makes me like the points. And I think if you look at the box score, or just if you look at the final score, one thing that goes largely overlooked about that Texans-Bills game last week is actually how well the Texans defense played. I mean, if you look at the final score, you see it was 40-0. You think, oh my God, it's the worst team ever. Well, that game, first quarter, they only allowed 7 points. Second quarter, they didn't allow a touchdown, just 3 field goals. Fourth quarter, or third quarter rather, only 1 field goal. And then, once they got worn out, the Bills ran it up with 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. But, I really do think that Texan defense, I mean, David Culley, like Belichick, is a defense-first kind of head coach. So I agree. I mean, I see this being a rock fight. I mean, the one thing that the Pats definitely don't have is any sort of big play ability. I mean, the Bucs secondary is one of the worst in the league. At least it was last week with all their injuries. I mean, the Rams just went up and down the field nonstop against them. And I mean, tonight, I mean, based on the comments on YouTube, you would think the Seahawks have the worst defense in the league, right? And I mean, the Rams haven't been able to do anything. So my point is, yeah, I mean, the Pats, I mean, if they had the ability last week, I was expecting some deep bombs to Aguilar or, maybe Jacoby Myers. Belichick's still very much keeping the training wheels on. And for me, there's no way that I'm ever laying over 3 points with New England this season. Even against Houston, who's my number 32 ranked team in the power ratings. So I agree with you. I'm going to be there on Houston come Sunday for sure.
Yeah, so you make some good points there. In that game. Moving on to the next game, Cincinnati versus Green Bay. I think this is one of those lines that you look at. Green Bay -3. It almost just looks too easy. There's another angle though. Outside of it just looking too easy to take Green Bay. Cincinnati comes into this game. They've had the extra rest from the Thursday night game that they had against Jacksonville the week before. Green Bay comes, off of a win against Pittsburgh. That game was 27-10. Pittsburgh with a late touchdown. 27-17 final. So the box score there may be a little misleading. The Packers pretty well dominated that game. Although I really think if the offsides call right before half isn't called against the Steelers, I think that game maybe ends a little bit differently.
For sure.
Maybe the Steelers cover.
Yeah,
maybe they don't win, but I think they definitely cover. And in this spot in the NFL, scheduling spots happen every week, and some are better than others. But this spot that I like in particular, Green Bay, it's an out of conference road game, at Cincinnati. And then the following week they play at the Bears, which is a divisional road game. So you've got back-to-back road games. The first one, not as meaningful as that second one where they, are obviously playing a divisional foe. And a win there, means much more than, it potentially does in this game. And, Joe Burrow, he's looked solid this year at times. I think that, he could have a big game on Sunday, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on when we go over some of our top fantasy players. But, at the end of the day, I just think that, Green Bay, I mean, the talent is definitely there. I think that, this team is very similar to the Tampa Bay team last year where, it's going to take some time. Bakhtiari's still out, and once they start getting guys healthier and healthier, I think we just see them get stronger and stronger. And, on paper, I guess maybe Green Bay would be the play, but I'm definitely looking at Cincinnati in this spot. And I actually, I used the positive EV page on OddsJam, and I was able to snag Cincinnati +4 -115. So I really like that number.
Yeah,
it's down to 3 now. Cincinnati for me in this spot. And any thoughts you have on this one?
Yeah, so I mean, I love that you have that scheduling situational spot handled. I mean, we handicap games similar but different. So when we come together, I think we pretty much encompass everything. I mean, that's definitely when you mentioned that made me like them, and I agree. And from a power rating standpoint, again, like I'm very high on the Packers. We touched on that in the last pod. I mean, I think right now that they are my pick to win the Super Bowl. I mean, like you said, they still have a long ways to go. But in this in particular game, they're banged up across both fronts, offensive and defensive. Like you said, I mean, on the offensive line, they're pretty thin. And that's going to be an issue against the Cincinnati team that's been able to rush the passer. They're going to be starting 2 rookies most likely. And, one thing about Rodgers is when he's under pressure, that's when he starts pouting. That's when he starts getting frustrated. We've seen it a few times last year. I mean, the game that comes to mind is that game where they were completely blown out by Tampa Bay. When that Tampa Bay front four was in his face all game, he couldn't have looked more disinterested. And the thing for me here is even though the Packers are -3, it looks so easy. Like it always looks so tempting to take a -3 road favorite, especially when it's a team with the public persona of the Packers who seems like, they're one of the top 5 teams in the league, and I do agree with that. I think long term they absolutely are. But you have to do the math here. Like, if that was flipped, it would be Green Bay -9 at home. And even though my power ratings agree with that, I think this line's about spot on. And that's, if both teams are healthy. If the Packers are going to have those offensive line problems, and, offensive line is, that's an injury, a cluster injury that often goes overlooked by the betting public, but it's really important. I mean, I touched on that in the Seattle game in the video that I did today, just because, Seattle finally got their offensive line back healthy. They looked awful in the past 2 games because they were a mess up front. The last time that they had a healthy front four was against the Titans in the first half. And then 2 guys got hurt at the end of that first half, and the wheels fell off, and they looked awful the past 2 weeks. And now here we are, the line's back intact, and they look good again. So my point is, injury reports as we move on in the season, it's important to keep an eye on that stuff. I mean, that's a huge part of my handicap, and it's just important. And a lot of people just poo-poo it or overlook it. Now, granted, last week, one of my concerns was with the Arizona Cardinals. Like, their offensive line was thin. 2 guys were out, but they ended up having their left guard, and who was the most important. It ended up not mattering at all as they covered easily. But yeah, I mean, I think Cincy's a live dog here. And, I think you're looking at a 3-point game most likely either way. So you're looking at a push at worst. I mean, that was a great job by you getting the best of the number. +4 was a great bet, win or lose. But yeah, I mean, I think very good chance come Sunday, as long as that injury report shakes out and those 2 guys are out, I'm going to be on Cincy, and I'll probably sprinkle a little on the money line as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned the offensive line being so important in the NFL, and Aaron Rodgers is definitely no Kyler Murray, to be able
Right.
to escape, from the pass
Exactly
rush,
right.
when it is
Yep.
there, and if the Bengals win this game, just to kind of look ahead a little bit, they traveled to Detroit the following week, and Detroit is a dumpster fire, and I've said for many weeks now and on many videos that I will not back Detroit, but if Cincinnati can find a way to win this game, I think that,
Oh,
Detroit
absolutely.
might have to be a look, especially if they get, destroyed by Minnesota on Sunday. So the last game that I wanted to discuss that I know, we have similar thoughts on is Dallas and the Giants. Dallas enters this game 4-0 against the spread, 3-1 overall. And, Dallas is obviously a very public team. Everybody wants to bet Dallas each week. The Giants, as we talked about, I mean, we highlighted this, earlier in the week, talking about, the turnover machine that Daniel Jones really is not this year.
Yeah.
And just the fact that they probably should be 3-1 this year. They went into New Orleans. That was a very, very impressive win
Exactly.
to win that on the road. And I just think they're, maybe starting to hit their stride a little bit. And this is definitely a spot where Dallas, I think, is definitely overvalued. I'm not for sure. I didn't actually look at this look ahead line, but I can tell you, I don't think that, over the summer, Dallas was, a touchdown favorite in this spot. So, you've got a little bit of inflation here, I think. And, Dallas is probably going to be in every money line parlay. Every teaser, take them down to -0.5. If they're laying 7, I think that line was actually 7.5 today. If you can get that 7.5, I think that's a great number. I know you and I are both not a fan of locking games in, too early, just because of injuries, and we like to, look at things. But as we mentioned with the Cincinnati game, I mean, that was a scheduling spot. I was betting it regardless.
Right.
Come
Yep.
come Sunday, or when I locked it in earlier in the week. So lock things in like that. But this game, I think, wait a little bit. I'm not sure that we see an 8 in this spot, but I think worst case scenario, you can get 7 on Sunday. I don't see it going to 6.5. So I'll definitely be on the Giants in this spot, and hopefully they can get back either Slayton or Shepard, or both of them for this week.
Yeah. And I mean, we touched on this last week, and I hate to be like the trend guy because I mean, neither you or I give them much credence at all. But I mean, with the Giants, it's just a fact. The home road splits are just unreal with them. I mean, at home they've been putrid, whether they're a favorite or an underdog. But on the road, I mean, they're almost always a road dog. Now dating back to last year, or 3 years rather, since Daniel Jones has been there, they're 19-6 against the spread. So I mean, for me, I mean, and they were 7-1 last year with Judge, and it's not just some like random trend that has no quantitative analysis backing it up. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, this is a team who typically plays teams close. They have a solid defense. And I mean, honestly, this year they have a pretty explosive offense. Like this was the make or break year for Daniel Jones. It's his contract year, and they surrounded him with the weapons that he needed so they could see if he's legit or not. And I mean, so far he's risen to the occasion. If the Giants are 3-1 here, this spread's probably closer to the 4 or 5. So now you're getting
Absolutely.
yeah. So you're getting value, and again, like these NFC East games, they're almost always dogfights. They're usually close. So getting a full touchdown. I mean, I really would love to get 7.5. So if that pops back up, I'd definitely lock it in. But I think, like you said, I mean, there's a good chance that comes. And yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the Giants are a live dog here again. I mean, last week I loved them against the spread, as did you. Unfortunately, I didn't sprinkle the money line there. I think this week I am. I think they can win this game. So, that's sort of one of my criteria for taking dogs. Not so much when they're 7+, but if they're under 7, I rarely like to back an underdog and pray they can do just enough to hang on and cover the spread. It's also the worst way to watch a game, backing a terrible team and just hoping they don't get blown out, or even worse, they're down 10 and just praying they can get a cheap backdoor touchdown at the end. So I really don't like backing teams when I think that'll be the situation. So I mean, for me, when I think a team has a legit chance to win outright or be there right at the end, which I think the Giants definitely do, I'm very confident taking those points and doing a little money line sprinkle. So Giants,
Yeah.
Giants are my second favorite play of the week. So they'll definitely be my card come Sunday.
Yep, for sure. I agree 100%. And NFC East is always tight. Not only the games, but end of the year, it seems like that Sunday night football game, week 17, which I guess it'll be week 18 this year, always
Exactly.
features an NFC East matchup. Unfortunately, last year we got the Eagles, who didn't really care to be there. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. And I mean,
nonetheless,
yeah,
it's a tight division.
that and like the one thing that you can always count on with the Cowboys is they do not handle prosperity well. So, the minute it seems like they're going to be a team that can make a jump, they always disappoint you. And,
Yeah, for sure.
I'll go to my grave saying I think Mike McCarthy is a tremendous fade. I mean, even though he's 4-0 this year, I think serious regression is coming there. And, by week 8, I won't be surprised if that number is 4-4. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. But
Yeah, turn Hard Knocks on, total clown show there. So I
for
know we
sure.
look to fade him to start the year, and it's not worked out too well. But I think this is definitely the spot. So as we get near the end of our show, I think it'd be nice to share our thoughts on some top fantasy players this week. I know we did that for tonight's game, and you and I have spent several years, developing a fantasy model, and it's had a lot of success. And I think that we're not DFS players, but for those of you that do play, the daily fantasy, I've put some together this year, and I've won a little bit, but it's just not really my thing. But it's popular, and people like to bet the weekly props, anytime touchdown scorer, first touchdown scorer, um, over under on the receptions, rushing yards. I mean, those are all things that people like to bet. And so each week, we've decided that we're going to share some of our top players, and we will tweet out a graphic for each of these positions prior to Sunday. But we're going to go ahead and just share our top quarterbacks. So, Steve, if you want to run down that list, and then I'll move on to the running backs.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, just touching on that real quick. Yeah, so I mean, the way how I bet these is, I mean, I like to sprinkle on, first touchdown scorer for fun. And actually, I mean, we really love DK tonight, and he was the first guy. I wouldn't recommend going nuts on those, but I mean, it's definitely fun. And for primetime games, I enjoy it. It just adds a little bit of extra drama in the beginning of the game before that first touchdown scored. But yeah, for Sunday, the model spit out five guys: Sam Darnold, Lamar Jackson, as Randall touched on earlier, Joe Burrow, really like him this week. Jared Goff tonight, Jared Goff on Sunday, and Trey Lance if he starts. And I guess he's a game time decision. Jimmy is, so we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, and then if he starts, I think that he might be a look maybe in those later fantasy contests in the afternoon if you get involved in one of those, and you're looking for a cheap quarterback. So the running backs for this weekend, it gave five of those: Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, Tyson Williams, and then Damian Williams for the Bears. This is operating under the assumption that Montgomery doesn't go, which it appears, at least as of today, that he's not. So, those five guys, potentially could look at, to score some touchdowns, daily fantasy, and that type of thing. So,
yep. All right, receivers, we got Antonio Brown. He has a lot of atoning to do for last week, although thank you for dropping those passes because I did not feel like sweating out that 2-point conversion for the push. Devonta Smith, yeah, I mean, I really like Devonta Smith. I love him coming into the season, and he's been a little disappointing, but he's a great matchup this week. Sterling Shepard, Marvin Jones, Mooney, who, man, last week, what a first quarter he had. He had 4 catches for 90 yards in the first quarter.
That was, and I'll tell you what, I really like him this week. We'll see who the quarterback situation is, but yeah, I think Mooney's got some value.
You know what? They actually just came out today and said that it's going to be Fields moving forward. So Nagy finally bit the bullet. Yeah.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, he had a huge first half, and that was with Fields slinging him the ball. So yeah, Mooney actually, I know you've got a couple more guys, but of the guys that are on this list, I think Mooney is the definite sleeper of all of these.
For sure. I love him. Brandon Cooks, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and AJ Green, who actually, I mean, he's becoming a red zone target for Kyler. And man, that offense is just humming. So
yeah, it is. It'll be interesting to see if it keeps going this week, against San Francisco. But yeah, AJ Green seems like his career is maybe a little refreshed, a little rejuvenated, and he's looked good. So top tight ends, Darren Waller, Mike Gesicki, Dallas Goedert, Rob Gronkowski, Blake Jarwin, and Jack Doyle. If you're looking, tight end positions, not really, one in the NFL that, I guess you could say it's easy to pick a sleeper, per se. You have your dominant tight ends. Everybody knows who they are. And, Darren Waller's probably going to be in a lot of, daily fantasy lineups. But I think actually on that list, I think Gesicki has a lot of upside. We talked earlier about the Patriots, potentially being flat. I think we might see that out of Tampa. And, I mean, Miami's got to do something offensively to get that offense going. It's just it's looked so bad here to start the year, outside of that Las Vegas game. And they played all right in New England with Tua, but man, I mean, they struggled last week against a Colts team that has not been very good this year. So,
and honestly, I mean, they're one fumble away. They're one Patriot fumble away from being 0-4. I mean, they've been terrible.
Yeah. Not impressive at all. So, like we said, we're gonna do this each week. We'll go over some fantasy guys. We'll talk about our games. And these are just a list of guys that we like to have solid weeks, whether that be anytime touchdown scorers, first time touchdown scorers, or daily fantasy studs, or just to go over their receiving props. But like I said, fantasy model we've developed has been very successful over the years, and hopefully this will help you guys make some of your bets. These predictions, like we said, based solely on these guys playing. And wow, what a miss by the Seahawks there! 35-yard field goal. That's wow. Well,
Good for me.
NFL kickers, man, nothing better. So,
Yep.
we still don't know the injuries for some of these players. So, make sure you check those out. And then our consensus picks this week, as of today, Cincinnati, Houston, and the Giants. Obviously, these are subject to change. We will post these on our Twitter at Sharp Betting OJ on Sunday morning prior to the start of the games. And just to give you guys a little insight on our consensus plays. So, we've been tracking these throughout the years since we've kind of shared plays and such, and this year our consensus record is 11-3. So it's pretty solid. I think there was one NFL season, actually I think it kind of started the talks of us starting to really pay attention to this, where we hit over 70% with our consensus. As you mentioned earlier, we have two different styles of handicapping, and when they come together, it's pretty good. So check out the Twitter at Sharp Betting OJ on Sunday. We'll tweet out those official plays from us, and hopefully we can make you guys some money.
Yep. Sounds great, guys. And yeah, we appreciate the engagement in the comments, positive or negative, doesn't matter. I mean, we're new. We understand that. You don't know us from a hole in the wall. So yeah, I mean, we're here just to share our insights and all win together. So definitely appreciate everyone's engagements. Keep those comments coming. Definitely hit that like button. We appreciate it. And let's get it come Sunday.